Yeah. Okay. Great.
Oh, there's that.
Yeah.
Great.
Awesome. All right, well, let's call the meeting to order. What is today? September the 9th. And this is our Athens Cultural Affairs Commission meeting for the month of September. Welcome, everybody. I appreciate y'all's time and being here. My name is Sally Kimball Shepherd. I'm serving as the chair at this time. Let's introduce ourselves so we can try to remember our names. Can I start with you?
I'm Lydia.
Marissa Chastain.
Jennifer.
Matt Stefik.
Hi, Bressy.
Tatiana Benaruso.
Stephanie Rains. And who's this person we got on the screen over there?
That is Todd's assistant.
Oh, yeah, we saw them once.
And Maho, nice to meet you.
You did. It's Mark has moved on to another job and I'm my host.
Okay, Maho, got it. Hey, welcome, Maho. All right, I believe we have a quorum to go ahead and look at the minutes from May and June. Hey, don't print out copies for everybody, but if you're really interested in hearing about them, they're right here. Are these August meetings?
August and May, because we didn't approve May last meeting. I did send those out, but if anyone needs to look at the hard copy, there's hard copies there.
Yeah, so, those, let's do them separately since people were separately at them. We got new members in August and then us oldies in the May one and August one. Those of us who were here in the May meeting, does anybody have a move to approve these minutes? Jessica moves to approve. Marissa, you got a second over there?
I'll second.
Awesome. If you're good with these May meeting minutes, let's do a thumbs up. All right? If you, yeah. You don't have to hear that. Spirit, okay, they're approved. August meeting minutes, we have more of you folks here in that meeting because, we're here. Do I have the August meeting minutes? That was not the vote. Okay. And do I have a second?
Same.
Lydia approves and Matt seconds. And if you're good with those meeting minutes, let's do a thumbs up if you're good with those. Okay, August meeting minutes are approved. Chair's report. Oh, welcome, Todd. Welcome in.
Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, what are you doing here today? What's going on?
I'm going to introduce you to the process we're going to follow in updating your master plan.
Awesome. And I guess that's probably later in the agenda.
Yeah, so we're gonna do Todd's presentation a little bit later in the evening. I'm gonna go through just some housekeeping things and some project updates before I hand it over to Todd. So for our new members and even for some of our existing members, we're getting you your emails. So I put in the request for your emails. I should be getting those pretty soon. And once you have those emails, you'll be able to enroll in our what we call the BAC training that I mentioned in your orientation. So that will be forthcoming. So don't worry, you're not behind or anything like that. Just sometimes it takes a little while for IT to get all the new people set up. So I'll be sending out individual emails with those instructions, how to set up your email with your password and your login info and all that stuff. Another thing, we have to move some upcoming meetings due to ACC holidays falling on our second Monday. So for our next meeting, we're going to move it to the third Monday, that's October 21st. And to make it even a little more complicated, we're not going to be meeting here at the Menon House. We're going to be meeting over at Memorial Park. Some of you we met over there once last year. I think it was the same reason. This room wasn't available. We're going to be doing, they're going to be doing early voting in this room. So there'll be voting machines and things all set up in here. So this room's kind of out of commission while we do that in October. So next month we'll be meeting October 21st at Memorial Park. And then,
Ian has a question.
Is that
basketball court.
Yeah, there's those where the buildings are up there. We'll have someone hanging out outside to kind of wave everybody in, but there's a conference room kind of similar to this room.
You go in that main door, it's kind of on the, if you're looking at the building from the parking lot, right? Straight in there, you see that conference room.
So there's usually plenty of parking over there, especially that time of day. There won't be a lot of people. We will have, our Athens Creative Theater folks will be there doing some rehearsal in Quinn Hall, which will be right next door. So we might get a little special treat. Some,
You can hear
some operatic, maneuvers. But I said, that's okay. Our folks love the arts. They love to experience the arts in all kinds of ways. So, yeah. But yeah, you'll get a nice preview and then you'll buy your tickets before they sell out. And then November, we'll also be doing something similar. We'll have to move to that third Monday, because the second Monday is Veterans Day. And so, our buildings will be closed and staff will be off. But we will be meeting in this room. So, just make a note of those two things. Okay. And the other item, tomorrow will be the last day for folks to apply for our brand new public art 6-week virtual course that we mentioned last month when we met. So the deadline to apply is tomorrow, Tuesday at 11:59. So if you know anyone who is interested, please make sure they know about it. If you need me to send you the link, again, just let me know. But I think I sent that out to y'all. And if you follow us on Instagram, the link is in our bio. So there's a few different ways to find that out. Any questions about the class?
Do you know how many assignments we have?
I think we have at least a dozen.
Oh, that's good, okay.
So we definitely have enough for a full class.
But we can accommodate more than
But we can
that.
accommodate a few more than that. I think it's up to 20.
I think so. So it's really like, it's not too laborious of an application process. So please, if you had somebody you were talking to about it, like nudge them to get their application in. Like, it's a really great program. And I think as many people as we can get in the first round would be, yeah.
Okay, so I'll run through some project updates real quick. Our poet laureate has been very active, and she has established now a monthly writers group at the Athens-Clarke County Library. So far, they just had their second meeting. If y'all are interested or know anyone that's interested, make sure they know about that. They're going to be doing another one in October, so I'll send out an update with that. This group is so diverse. It's really wonderful. All different types of writers, all different kinds of experience levels. It's just kind of a safe space for writers to go and read pieces that they're working on and kind of help workshop and give feedback and that sort of thing. Talk about challenges of being a writer, and there's lots of snacks. So it's been very well received. The library is really excited to have that. Apparently, this is something a lot of folks have been asking for. And now we have it. So that's a wonderful thing that she's doing. Some updates on our SPLOS projects. Of course, we have our Greenway mural going up at North Oconee Access Road. If you haven't had a chance to go over there and check it out, you can follow along on Instagram. I've been posting some pictures and some updates there. So she's going to be working on that for the next week or so. And then she has her artist talk next Thursday, September 19th. So, and that'll be right here at the Linden House at 6 o'clock, if anyone's interested in that. Our Firefly Trail sculpture projects are both in the fabrication document stage right now, getting ready to get into the fabrication phase. So those will probably be wrapping up hopefully early next year. for installation. So that's the Firefly Trailhead and also the Indian Hills intersection a little further down along the Firefly Trail. Our arena projects are coming along. Those will be installed before the end of the year or before the arena opens in early December. So that is still, they're still on track to open in early December. So that's the 2 murals and the sculpture there. So, and Bishop Park, we're getting ready to put that call out pretty soon. And that's going to be for a pair of pedestrian gates that are going up at the pedestrian entrances along Hawthorne, on the Hawthorne side of Bishop Park. So I'll make sure everyone knows when those go out. And I have a couple presentations for y'all to get some recommendations on a couple projects. So let me cue that up. Bear with me. We'll see how it goes this time. Everyone see this okay? I'll stand back here so everyone can see. So we need recommendations on a couple different things today. Yeah. There. So the Morton Theater, they have some funds for a mural. Get into our. Right. So y'all are familiar with the Morton Theater building, yes? Show of hands, everyone. Even Jamie, the new guy in town, he knows. It's such an iconic building, very important. It was built in 1910 by Monroe Balbo's King Morton. It's one of the oldest surviving vaudeville theaters in the U.S. It has not only a theater, but also many Athens-Clarke doctors, dentists, pharmacists, and other professionals had offices in that building. And, starting in the late 1980s and early 90s, the building was renovated and turned back into a theater that it is now. Of course, this was the original site for the Hot Corner Legacy mural that is on the Costa building. Those of you who've been around are familiar with the story. It was basically going to be on the newer section of that building that overlooks the parking lot directly next to the Morton Theater. The property owner had some concerns about the mural going there and that affecting future development. And long story short, we had to find another location for that mural, and that's why it's on the side of the Costa building. But of course, the Morton Theater never got its mural, and they would like to have that mural, but they're going to put it on the inside. So they have some funds from the ADDA, gave them $5,000, as well as the Inverted Power Grant. And they are looking for some matching funds to maybe a larger piece. So there's a Morton building. And so let's show you the walls in question. So here's one wall in the lobby. So we're going to do this in the lobby area. So when you come in to the, if you go in to go to a show, the theater entrance is to your right. If you go a little farther, there's that lobby area that takes you into the pharmacy. So here's this other wall there as well. Basically, they're looking to do something on both of these walls, which are pretty ample in size. Something for the ceiling, and including, this wall, so this sort of L-shaped wall here. And then this wall, which is kind of to your right when you're coming into the lobby area. So it would be something that kind of wraps around a little bit in the lobby area. And, because it's indoors, and it's something that, you'll be able to view a little closer than something on the outside of the building. It can be a little bit more intricate, they want it to obviously be something that tells the story of the Morton, theater, the building, just the history, the performers. And there's a lot of, stories to pull from. So, we're looking to get a recommendation on, adding an additional $10,000 to this project to bring it up to a $20,000 mural project. So, option A is to add those funds from our, we have swamped, 2011 project 21 funds. That's a pot of money that's used to, fund any project on public property or add to additional funding to those, projects. So we do have, money to do that. And of course, the other option is not to add those funds. So, Sally, yes.
When there are multiple funding sources like that, does it go through the selection panel process?
It still goes through the selection panel process. The project concept doesn't need, approval like it does with the normal SPOS project, but we still go through a normal call for art, and a selection. So, yeah.
Is the additional $10,000 going to take away money from anything else?
No, these are just funds to add to projects.
How come there's an option to add an additional 10? Like, I'm wondering, are you guys thinking that would make it super spiffy?
Yeah, they had discussed just doing one wall.
Uh-huh.
And I think if they were to keep it at 10, one wall would probably be, but to do two walls and have a bigger, just a larger mural, I think it makes sense to add to it this time.
How big are the walls, square foot?
10 feet tall, and the longest one is over 20 feet, and then the shorter one is 16 or 17.
The Morton Theater is like situated on the hot corner itself, and so like this mural is an opportunity to like touch on the history not only of the people who perform in the theater, but also touch on its significance being placed in that location, right? That was kind of like, it's funny because you can stand on the hot corner and look up the street and see the hot corner mural. It's not actually on the hot corner, but I mean, you can see it from there. But this would bring that history and some vitality to that space, which you can see is essentially like a blank wall, and really illuminate the history by illustrating it in this way. And so the ADDA stands for the Athens Downtown Development Authority. So that's where they have, an investment facility that brings all kinds of people, different folks who come either for our ACC productions or that's an entirely rented facility. I mean, there are all kinds of different productions and lots of everything from dance performances from local dance companies to like touring companies come through the Morton Theater, as they have since it was built in 1910, right? It's like a continuation of history of that. The reason that we could build that buildings. This mural is an effort to sort of tell that story and like really show it to people in the space. So with the two grants matching here, which is like help bolster the project.
Anybody have any more thoughts or? Is anybody ready to move forward with voting on either option 1 or 2? You're ready to move forward on it? Okay, cool. Those that are in favor of option 1, you could raise your hand. All right, well, that's everybody. Anybody want to say option 2? Yes. Is that good enough for us to be like, heck yeah, let's do it?
That's fantastic. Oh, thank you. That's.
Heck, yeah, let's do it.
Will be very. No problem. Yeah, and I'll keep you all updated too as that project goes, because it doesn't have a traditional user group. So, we'll definitely need folks to participate in that selection. So there'll be an opportunity there to be a part of that. Thank you, Brett. And so, this presentation is kind of a new idea. So I know some of our new folks aren't as familiar with our T-SPLOS projects. I did a presentation a few months back on our T-SPLOS 2023 projects. We went through them and made recommendations for which projects will have art, which ones don't. We have a lot of T-SPLOS projects that have very small budgets. And it's a question of like, what do you do with a small budget like that, right? We're talking about anywhere from, let's say, $3,000 up to like $15,000. That's what we would consider a small budget. So with a small budget like that, you really can't do any sculpture or anything like that. And for a lot of those particular projects, we're talking about intersection improvements, sidewalk gap improvements, things where there's not a building or a wall or anything like that. It's just public right of way, a sidewalk, a road. So there's some limits with that. We've talked about asphalt art, but asphalt art can be quite costly, especially if we're working with thermoplastic to make it a little more durable than traditional paint. Because paint just wouldn't have the longevity that with our capital projects. So we're trying to come up with some different ideas, and sometimes the good ideas just come to you. I was contacted by a company that's in Ohio that makes benches from recycled wind turbines. So these are very, very durable materials that can't be recycled, can't really, you can't just chuck a huge thing in a landfill somewhere. So, they're trying to find other purposes. So these are benches and other fixtures that are made from like wind turbine blades. They have a program where they can deliver them primed and ready to paint. And you can paint them just like you would a mural. And you can use just regular exterior paint like you would on a wall for these. Of course, they have that functional element that's very durable, and they have a small footprint. They can be put pretty much anywhere. And I think they would be great for these smaller projects. With the potential to grow it into a larger program, something that maybe we do it from time to time, every few years, do a call for these, select a group of artists, work on them with the Mountain Wild, that sort of thing. So just to show you what we're talking about, this is what they look like. They're not particularly good looking without a art on them, but they're very durable. The ones that we're looking at utilizing are these covered ones that have the shade because, as we all know, it's just getting hotter and hotter. Shade, and especially with a lot of these projects, in order to do, whatever road improvements, sidewalk improvements, sometimes we have to clear a lot of trees around those areas. And while we put the trees back, it can take a long time for them to be able to provide shade again. So that is something that kind of comes up on our trails, and, different, intersections and that sort of thing. So, but they have a lot of different ones that they. So this is just an example of a painted one. And they can be painted both on the inside and the outside. There's another one that's like a deer. Nice relaxing place. And that shows the artists working on them. So you can see it's not something that really need any specialized equipment, like a lift or anything, just a ladder and some paint.
You know, artists could work on these alone, they could work on them collaboratively with a group or a collective. So there's a lot of options there. So basically, I'm looking for y'all to make a recommendation on whether I should move forward with kind of pursuing this as an option for our smaller T-SPLOS projects. What I would do from here is, I've already identified some projects I think would be a good fit for this. What I need to do is kind of figure out exactly how much money we need to do those, because we will have to add a little bit of money to those projects just to get it up to an amount where we can have, you know, the bench shipped here. We may need to do concrete pads and things for them. So, once I have a better idea of exactly, a number, I'll come back and we'll do you know, get a vote on the amount of money that would need to be added to those to balance everything out and get them all up to the same, amount, because we'll need the same amount of money for each one, pretty much. If we don't like this idea, then we'll have to just go another way. So those are kind of our options, right now. And again, you're not voting on a budget, you're not voting on anything, you're just kind of voting on the concept right now, if that makes sense. So any questions on these? Yeah.
With metal,
Yes.
like decking wood, as a bench, the backing.
Yeah, the structure itself, they're metal. I think they have some sort of like fiberglass inside of them.
From the wind turbine blades.
Yeah, so our blades, so imagine like a big wind turbine blade and they slice it into slices. Yeah. But then the decking is what the seat is made of.
And does the company give you like how many they want to be placed in the order, or is it just one?
Oh, you can order one, we can order 50. You know. Obviously, there's, you can get a better deal. So, you know, if we do it, we should probably, you know, I've identified 10 projects that I think would be good for these. We may have a couple other ones as well that aren't necessarily T-SPLOS projects, but other projects that might benefit from something like this. So I'd add to that. And the idea is that, you know, ideally we can find a space where artists can come and work on that. Because we're not going to expect artists to deliver these things to and from their homes or their studios. So there's some other logistical things we can work out, but ideally this would be something that, you know, the artist would just be responsible for painting. And then we would move them where they needed to go.
Super accessible.
Yeah, so, and again, like these are projects where there's not a wall or something for a traditional mural. So if we want to do more murals and more, you know, more people can do murals as opposed to like a freestanding sculpture. So basically, if you could paint a big canvas, you could paint one of these. And that's what they call them.
I love the swing option.
The swing's nice. Yeah, I like that.
See more swings in public.
And they don't have, like, if they're in Ohio, they don't have any of this in Georgia right now. So we would be, if we, you know, get on it, we would be the first ones to have these here, which would be very unique. And, you know, if they're all the same shape, you know, they would kind of be part of like a big collection. So they would have an identity, kind of like our bus shelter program. You know, it gives their kind of iconic thing that's recognizable, and you go, oh, that one's the one that's, you know, got purple bunnies, and this one's the one that does this, and, you know, they can maybe be thematic for where they're placed.
All right.
I have a question. So where exactly would they be placed? It would be intersections, roundabouts, that kind of thing?
Not a roundabout, but yeah, places like, you know, adjacent to a sidewalk or an intersection. And what we would do too is I'll come back with the actual locations. And we can talk about where they would actually be placed.
So the way these projects work is like, let's say, if it's one particular intersection, it would have to be placed near that intersection in that funding project. So they would have to go kind of where the projects are and kind of live with their individual projects. But as far as deciding where on that project site they would go, y'all can probably help us with that. You know, if it's a situation where there's more than one option for a site, sometimes you're really limited when it comes to right stuff like that. But good.
I have one more question.
Sure.
And it's just that, is there any concern at all with the metal conducting heat in the summer? It's probably not an issue, but
They have a kind of insulation, like I said, it's not just straight metal. They have like some kind of core, it's like a fiberglass core or something. And, yeah, supposedly they don't, get hot. We can ask that question.
Yeah.
This is really like to pursue this as an option to address this cluster of T-SLOSS projects, right? Like, do we want Tatiana to continue down this line of rather?
That's right.
Otherwise, you're getting.
Just tire broken.
Otherwise, we'll pursue something else, and, you know, it'll be a lot to figure out exactly the budgets, the locations, and, you know, it would be a mass call if we were to do one call for however many we're doing. And the idea is, you know, that they would all have the same contract, they would all be working with the same timeline and that sort of thing. We can onboard them kind of as a group and orient them as a group. And, you know, like I said, hopefully make something that's a little bit more accessible than some of our big scary projects.
Kind of cool that I like the fact that there was recycled materials. I got data on the use of this otherwise recyclable material. I think it's not cool that somebody figured out this.
Yeah, our facilities folks think they're pretty cool just as a product, you know, because they're very durable and sustainable. It's a plus for us.
All right, you're ready to vote? Who's in favor of option one? You can raise your hand. All right, no option one. I think we're good. Yes. So, with next steps, we said we're going to identify which projects to use for this, figure out budget,
Locations, this will go to our block oversight committee if we're adding some money to those funds. Then the concept would go to mayor commission approval, we call, we do the art selection, and then the art would have to be approved by mayor and commission, so it's kind of the same process as anything else. A little bit, different. Awesome. Thanks, y'all. That's one presentation. And we pull up the last presentation. I'll do this for you. Quicker.
Okay, is it my turn already? Make fast work of those agenda items. Okay. All right, well, first thing to say is there's not going to be a vote after this. No option one or option two. Or not even option three. Second thing is, I just want to say it's a real honor and pleasure to be invited back to work with you all after, I think it's about 6 or 7 years ago, I think, that we worked with previous iteration of ACAC and Tatiana was involved, but there were other staff involved too, to produce Athens Public Art Master Plan. And either you like me a lot, and so you want me to come back, or you're really mad at me because there were mistakes, you need me to fix them. But in either case, I'm here. So, but I'm happy about that. Today, what I'd like to do is just kind of give you an overview of what this project is about and how we're going to move along, what to expect, and then get some thoughts from you all about what you'd like to see. So that I know most of you are pretty new to the commission. But I can't remember who's just joined or who's new. So how many of you are like, this is your like first or second or like your first couple of meetings? Okay, I told them there was going to be a vote. This isn't technically a vote. So about half of you are really just starting out. And the other folks who didn't raise your hand, how long have you been on the commission?
Maybe 2 years.
2 years.
You're way harder than
2 years.
Yeah.
Okay. So when you start, do they ask you to read the public art master plan? Did.
This thing was getting all this material that you may want to look at. I read it.
Good work.
Or not, maybe not the whole thing, but
We give you a free
Yeah.
copy.
yeah.
Everybody gets a copy.
Okay, okay, well,
I haven't done
Um,
copies. But everyone has a digital copy.
okay, well, if you haven't looked through it, take a look at it and see how well you think that reflects what happens here and what you'd like to see. So next slide. So we already introduced you, and this is quickly what we're going to do. I already talked about that. So we'll go to the next slide. Next slide. Okay, so I'll say a word about myself first. So I am a trade and urban designer, a city planner. I have been working in the field of public art, planning, project development for probably the better part of 20 years. I started my life as a ordinary bread and butter city planner, but was really interested in how artists work in cities and eventually gravitated towards doing that kind of work. I'm from Philadelphia. I work on my own. I don't have a company, it's just me. But whenever I do projects, I tend to team up with folks. For this project, I have an assistant who's a graduate planning student at Penn, who's on the call right now. You saw her a minute ago, Maha Sukuma, who will be helping me with this project. So you'll see her at these meetings as well. I work all over the country, sometimes in Canada. I work with public agencies. I work with arts nonprofits, with community-based nonprofits. I work with private developers. Anybody who is really interested in using public art as a tool for improving their communities. In Philadelphia, I work part-time for the organization that puts up all the murals, Mural Arts Philadelphia, where I'm sort of tasked with working on the early stages of a lot of their more complicated projects. For example, I'm doing a mural about the Holocaust right now, which is an incredibly challenging time to do a project like that. We've already been working on it for 3 years. And we just signed the artist contract today. That's not because of bureaucratic delays. We did an international search. It took a long time to find artists. Like about a year just to find the artist. Anyway, so I work with them on projects like that, and with their whole team to put those together. So I have a bit of expertise in that. So that's who I am. And again, I'm really happy to be working here again. Next slide. So next slide, please. So a lot of the communities I worked with in the mid-teens or late teens have been calling me again about updating their plans. So it's not unusual for a program that's really busy, like Athens program is, to ask someone to come back and take a look at plans, policies, procedures. In fact, I kind of focus a lot of my work on that right now. I don't do as many new plans as I look at old plans and help communities evaluate how they're doing and take their steps forward. So it's very natural for a community like Athens to say, let's take another look at our plan and see how it's doing. This plan is also driven by a lot of issues too that have arisen, that I've had a lot of conversations with Tatiana and Stephanie about them already, about challenges, opportunities. And so this plan is going to dive right in to a lot of the things that they've been observing. And part of what I know many of you are new or just on it a few years, but it's a chance for you to also ask, to suggest things that we might look at in this process as well. So some of the things they've asked me to think about are outward looking, like how does the public art program relate to the community? That means thinking about how artists get engaged with the program. It's great you're doing this work, this project with Triangle Artworks. How do you support artists? How do you create opportunities for them to do projects? If SPLOST projects weren't enough, there are requests and opportunities to do other kinds of public art projects. So how do you sort through them and decide which ones are worth your attention? And also, when you work on SPLOST projects a lot, you kind of really narrow focus down on things that are about the infrastructure of the community, like the transportation systems and the buildings. Is it possible also to think about a space where you're talking about some of the other issues in the city, the social issues in the city, other kinds of concerns that artists are also interested in as well? Is there room for that? So those are some of the things that in our conversations that emerged. Next slide. But hang around Stephanie a lot, you'll hear about the internal issues, such as the number of projects you have on your plate. So the idea you just talked about, those terms, not only is it a kind of cool idea, and I will admit, when Stephanie first told me about it and I was trying to imagine it, I didn't feel real good about it. But now that I've seen it, it's kind of cool. Well, you told me about it though, because you didn't come to the meeting. So I heard about
I've already had a lot of meetings with God.
Anyway, that's also a kind of way to problem solve for how do you deliver public art over a lot of projects. Imagine if Tatiana said that maybe 10 projects could use this approach. Imagine if you had to do separate RFPs and separate, user groups for all those 10 projects. That's a heavy lift, especially for tiny projects. So one of the big issues is how do you, with the staff you have, handle the extraordinary number of projects that you're almost a victim of success in a way, right? Another is thinking about, it's always worth thinking about what's the relative role of staff and what's the relative role of the commission in working on these projects. When I started working on things in Athens, there was no staff. The ACAC was a working commission. The ACAC members, you guys did what she does. So that was one of the big victories of the first plan. It didn't come right away. I remember that meeting where the mayor said, I just don't think we're going to hire someone to do this. But it came about that change, and that was a staff person. So what's the relative roles is always important. I think another concern is being able to communicate to the public what the commission does, what public art is, what staff does, and help people understand these processes so they can be better involved, so they can understand why sometimes things take time, why they can't necessarily get what they want in their neighborhood all the time. So just and really also to build, continue, always nurture, support the program. Just the mechanics of running projects, particularly if there's not a natural user group to a project, like Tatiana said, the intersection of so-and-so road and so-and-so road may not have a user group. So how do you kind of deal with community input and things like that? So sort of looking at making sure that the processes are kind of right sized to the projects. And then finally, maintenance, how do you you start building in a strategy and a process for looking at the care and maintenance of your work. I think the plan, I think, says that central services should take care of it, if I'm not mistaken. Looking at how the artwork you're collecting can be taken care of better. And then finally, right now, the public art program is part of leisure services. Is that the best place for it in the kind of structure of city county government? So those are all, you know, what you could say is in the past 7 years or so, you've gotten a lot of experience with projects, experience working with staff, and now it's like kind of time to come back and look and see how we can optimize all these systems. And ultimately in the service of, you know, creating art that the community feels helps, you know, supports the vision for what they want their community to be. I know when we created the first plan, we talked a lot about Athens should look how it feels. That's what the public art should accomplish. And so whatever that slogan is now, that's the ultimate goal, and all these systems need to help create that. So those things are that's what's on the minds of Stephanie and Tatiana. It's the reason, you know, why it's important to do this. And again, I know a lot of you have just joined or are new, but if you have thoughts too, we'll talk about them a little later. Next slide. So what you can expect. So almost every public art plan kind of breaks down into three main things. A vision, which is what are you trying to accomplish with public art in your community? Why does your community decide to invest its resources in public arts? That's number one. Number two is where are your opportunities? A lot of them are defined by SPLOST, but there's still, as you were just discussing in the previous agenda item, there's still room to think about how do you pursue those opportunities. And when people come to you with proposals outside of SPLOST, how do you manage those? And are there things you'd like to take on outside of SPLOST that might relate to other priorities? So where are your opportunities? The implementation is really all the things I was talking about. How do you decide what projects to do? How do you manage the projects with the staff you have? What does the board do? Excuse me, the commission do? What does staff do, et cetera? And then the last thing is something that Stephanie and Tatiana and I talked about, which we may or may not get to. I just put it up there. We talked about the idea of creating operations guides, which are sort of like 1 page or poster size sort of explanations of how public art staff and the commission do their work. Almost like a cheat sheet, but the reason that would almost be outward facing so that the public have a better chance to see how these things work. Oh, so I'm going to get something in my park. How's that work? You can then show them, instead of an 85-page master plan, you can show them a guide that says, here's how we work on projects. Here's what you can expect to see in your community. So it's something we may decide to do. Well, I already talked about these things, so we'll go quickly. I won't go through each of these, just take a minute to look at them, but I kind of summarize them. Next slide.
Keep going.
Yeah, next slide. And then I just talked about the operations guide. So this will be part of what we said this week. Look at it. So what can you expect will happen? We're going to try and do this pretty quickly, about 6 months. So every time I talk to Stephanie, I sort of get intimidated by the number of issues we have to unscramble. Like, how do we get artists insurance? But we're going to try to do this quickly. Normally, a public art plan would take up to a year, depending on how fast it can be approved. But we're going to try to spend the fall doing research, different kinds of research and meetings and interviews and assessment of things. And then hopefully late in the year, like around November, be able to come back with findings and some ideas about what the recommendation should be. So that's going to be a very aggressive, 2 months to 10 weeks coming up. And then sometime towards the end of the year, I would come back, to present that. And have any other kind of follow-up meetings that are necessary. And then in the winter, at the beginning of the year, we would look to write up the plan and then come back one more time to present it. And I suppose this would have to be approved by the mayor and commission. Is that correct? Last time I came back and presented to the mayor and commission. So we'll figure out how to land it later.
Yeah, there's like accept or adopt. Is the choice, yeah.
Yeah, they accepted last time. Yeah, because they didn't want to hire a staff person.
There's a difference between the mayor and me voting to accept and adopt, I think, and
Accept means, yeah, that happened.
I acknowledge this.
You did what you asked. So. That means, yeah, we're gonna do this. So, and then, as much as possible, I will tune into your meetings and give you progress reports. Though I already have to take a pass on, I think, November, because you moved it. And I have dedication for a project I'm working on that evening, so I won't be able to do that. But and then part of what I will be doing is a couple of blog posts for your webpage as part of the. When we talked about this early on, we talked a lot about keeping the public informed about things, and so that will be a way for the public to see what's going on. So this week we'll probably put together a blog post just to talk about this project starting, what it's about, and so forth. Next slide. So I went through this already pretty quickly, but my approach means reviewing a lot of documents and background materials. I already looked through, your agendas and minutes for the last year or so, and all the RFPs you have issued recently, and we'll be making sure I'm caught up on plans that the planning department, we just, our meeting today was with the planning folks to talk about the comprehensive plan and what they're envisioning for the next draft of that. Interviews. Something I like to do in situations like this is questionnaires as opposed to big surveys. I think in this case, questionnaires to AC members and questionnaires to artists might be a good idea to ask very focused questions about the experiences folks have had. What's working, what's not working, what would they like to see? Those are really directed to the kind of workings of projects as opposed to big picture thinking. So we'll talk a bit about that when I'm here. One of the optional things in my work plan is a public survey. I think this week we'll talk about whether what role that could have. And then there was a notion that came out of some of our early conversations about doing something called a learning exchange, which is sort of like a focus group. But in the focus group to me is like a one-way conversation. The consultant asks you to focus as a group on something, and a learning exchange is more of a back and forth. So next slide, there's a little more about that. So the idea is we might pick a couple of issues that we want to take a deeper dive on, like how does a program like this set up a maintenance and conservation system, right? How do you, I don't know if this is a big concern of yours, but in many cases, how do you do as much as you can to reduce barriers to artist participation in RFPs? So we have a conversation in which I share what I know, you share what you know, and we kind of talk about what might be a good fit for your community on whatever that topic is. So because this plan is going to be very much focused on how things get done, I thought having an opportunity to really investigate a couple of topics in depth would be a good idea. And we would have the option, depending on the topic, bringing in guest speakers. We could do it by video conference, and if there's a topic where there's be a really cool guest speaker, we can bring someone in to take part as well, to widen the circle of conversation. And that, if we did that, what I would do is I would hire a local arts writer to attend, and they would write the blog post up about that learning exchange so that that could be on your web. So before we get to this, are there any questions about, there's a lot of work over the next 6 months. Any questions though about what I've described or the kinds of things we'll be doing? It's not a vote, it's just a chance to say anything you'd like.
A lot of growth.
Yeah. So what's your role in all of this? So like I said, I would like to check in with you at all your meetings for the next 6 months, except for the one where I have a party to go to. And so I'll be giving you reports, and your role is to really give feedback on what's going on. And then at certain times in the process, there might be a draft of something for you to look at as well. So your role is really to advise this process. So today, your advice is around the approach to the project and the topics we're talking about. And I'll ask you also, there are people who you suggest I talk to in this process and so forth. And then another, that's part of what I mean by say provide connections and access. You may say, oh, you got to talk to this artist. I know that artist, and I'll help you set it up or something like that. And at the end, most important job is to advocate for this when it comes to the mayor and commission and within the community. To let folks know what's going on and to speak in support of it. And of course, you'll be helping to implement it once it's finished. Next slide. So this is the last slide. I knew I didn't want to make this more than half an hour, so that was about 15 minutes, and now we can talk for a little while. So these are the questions I would normally ask at this point. I know you're new to this. It's probably a lot to absorb, but once we put a process like this could be, what would you like to see come out of it? To the extent you know what's been working and not working, if you prefer, you could answer a questionnaire about that or set up another time. I often go, as an aside, when I'm working in a community, I go to the high school and I talk to the art class in the high school, where it's, here's what public art is. Do you imagine yourself doing this? And how do you think this can change the city? And inevitably, after it's all over, someone comes up to me at the end and has one more thing to tell me in private. And it's usually the most important thing that they have to say. So if you have something you'd like to share, but you prefer to share it in another way, that'd be fine too. How do you think public art can touch this community? That's a good question for people who are new to the commission. Because you probably come here with ideas about why you're here. You all talked about that at the last meeting, why you're joining the commission. What do you hope public art can do? Where can public art touch what you think is important to the community right now? We shouldn't overlook talking about that. I mentioned the idea of the learning exchanges. Are there topics you'd like to suggest that we take on? And as I said, do you have suggestions about who we should talk to? So with that, I will stop. I will stop talking and sort of ask what reactions you have, what thoughts, what questions you might have. Here's your chance to kind of help give some insight and input into kind of beginning phases of this work.
I think the one pager to kind of break it down is really exciting, because the most common thing that I've heard or that people ask me about whenever I come on this commission is why don't we ever use local artists? And I'm no, I think that's too. Trying to explain the process, I think that's the most common misconception. And so I really like the idea of something just really easily digestible for people to maybe better understand that.
What's the quick answer to that question? That's not true.
Yeah.
Wrong.
What other thoughts do you guys have?
As-
I was just gonna ask, where are we? So, and how we're using. Maybe public a lot of it, but
I'm still kind of trying to look at that. I don't, I think, I think that a lot of the projects in there were moved along as well as you could based on what you can control. You can't control everything. We did hire a staff person. That's a good idea. I mean, that was a big accomplishment. But I haven't, I think by the end of this week I'll have a better idea. But right now it's hard for me to say. Any other thoughts? Wait, I'm sorry. You were going to say something too.
Oh,
You guys
I was
both.
just gonna say especially as a new person, it's a little overwhelming.
Yeah.
Like in a wonderful way, because there's a lot of talented people who have clear action plans that they want to do. But I need to like reread that like 3 times before I can really have any cogent questions.
Well, what you'll get is the presentation, and then when you get the questionnaire, you'll have more time to think about it. Yeah.
It's exciting. I mean, it's pretty cool to see that this is a response, it sounded like, to some problems that have happened, or maybe things that we wanted to do better. Sounds like this is a very, from my very limited perspective as a new person, you know, it's direct action.
I wouldn't say problems per se, but I mean,
Opportunities. Opportunities.
When I took this
You know
job
what
in
you want.
2019, the public art master plan was given to me as firebound, like copy. And I was like, okay, so I have to read this. And it was a reference point for me to be like, okay, here's what we're doing. And because I don't think you were working even as a contractor at the time. Okay. And then, so I'm just trying to figure it out. So it was a reference point. And I feel like it has so much information in it, but we've, as a government, as a community, have changed and grown and evolved. So there are things in that plan that need more specificity now. Now we need to like really get down into like how the original thing. Because that was like, here's what you could do. So we started doing that, and now it's like, okay, let's write it down. And I really feel like the update will give us a chance to see those places where we really need to clarify, because this exactly the process that A, we're capable of doing as a government, and B, is this the one we want? Like, does it get us to the place where we want to go? And so we want to build something that we can, like, we want to see where we're going, and then that's what we really need the cultural affairs commission to help us see, like, where are we going with all of this? Because Tatiana and I are definitely doing the paperwork, right? We kind of like need someone else to help us see like where we're going with all, and an update to the master plan helps us like collectively see what's possible.
Sounds like, from what you're saying, it sounds like this is part of like a necessary effort because you just know more than you did before.
Exactly.
Sounds,
you created this new thing, and now it's been road tested, and
Yeah.
other circumstances have changed, and so it's time to kind of adjust it to meet what we all now know, right? So it's not, like I said, it's a natural process.
thanks for the background.
Yeah.
Yeah, and for us too, it's, not just about how do we want public art to be, it's like, how do we fit it in with all these other processes? Because, in an ideal world, we would have it work one way, but we have all these existing policies and processes and ways we have to do things legally as a government. And sometimes they might not mesh well with how we ideally would like to do them. And so hopefully this would help us find
more of a happy medium maybe with some of those issues. You know, because obviously Stephanie and I, like, we know that there's barriers, there's processes that are just not ideal. And it's like, how do we work with those? How do we make it work for us? So that will be a big part of this process.
Just don't recall everybody's role in the process, you're working with so many different departments, so many different.
Yeah.
You know, all these different heads, all these different people.
Right.
It's just kind of help, like, solidify, so they don't push back as well. Like, if you ask for something in the department, they don't drag their feet. Say, our plans to improve the master plan, we're just as much part of this process in the government. But I don't really understand how, I assume we use different departments throughout the city to get things done.
Sure.
And I'm sure there's pushback, I'm sure there's drag, I'm sure there's, we're, well.
It may have been in the beginning, before, and I think the first public art master plan helped address those things, but I would say that the public art process is very integrated into what ACC that's expected. Everybody knows that ordinance is the ordinance, so it's really like, where's our part, will we fit our piece in there? And it's like, you gotta time it all out so that construction, landscaping, public art, all of these things are done in the right order, in the legal and correct way to apply taxpayer funds is all.
So you can do some sidewalk benches. You have the guys with the sidewalks and the curbs, and there's AC government workers who are like out there who I see all the time, doing all their work.
Potentially, yeah.
So these are the guys, and so you have to, they're part of the government, so they have, they don't have to, it's part of their role now. They don't need to put it in here. Oh, yeah, and layer 6x8 was flat, so this is the kind of.
Well, when it comes to these SPLOST and T-SPLOST projects, a lot of those projects are contracted out. So it's not necessarily county workers necessarily working on some of those projects. So it kind of depends. You know, if it's something that's just kind of a, you know, improvement or something like that, but more than likely that work would be contracted out. Part of what we need to figure out with the budgets is if maybe, like, let's say they're pouring a new sidewalk and we know we need a concrete pad in this little section, can they do those things at the same time? And maybe that's just kind of part of the project. That's kind of something we need to determine. Or is it something where we need to add additional funds to get that, a contractor to do that, just kind of ad hoc outside of that project? So ideally, be able to integrate the infrastructure into the improvement project that they're doing, but that may not be each case. Yeah.
It's tricky. It's like being SpaceX and trying to land your rocket back down at the ground, trying to get what she said to actually happen correctly, given the contract processes and so forth. And trying to do it in Philly where you have union labor everywhere, that's even further.
But the good thing about a project like this is that the hardest part will be done. You know, they just come and they paint their thing and then, you know, we deal with placing it.
Right.
And so at least, you know, we don't have an artist that's like sitting and waiting for their thing to be placed, waiting for something to get built, waiting, you know, and having it drag on in a sense. So hopefully like the artist component will be a little bit, more concise in this particular case, yeah. There's, you know, with bigger projects, you know, they just have to go along for the ride sometimes, to waiting for install.
It is complicated, you're right, and we know it is, but having these things written down, making them available in PDFs, making them searchable, it helps with transparency, which we're bound to do, you know? And we also just like, we can explain it, we should be able to point people to a process they can follow when they, and also invite people into this, right? We always need more people to be on selection panels and more people showing up for, you know, being on user groups and all those kinds of things. We want people to be involved.
Will the master plan be like, you know, that is sort of an in-house document or
Oh.
We can see
Master plan right now,
on the website.
it's on our website right now.
What the city's plan is, public art, how they're.
Okay, we'll do that, yep.
Yeah, I mean, it has to go to the mayor commission, so. It has to be published, and that's why, we'll provide a few things to put on your webpage about the process too. So at least folks who are following ACAC will be able to see.
I've got some questions. It sounds like you're gonna take the previous master plan. Are you gonna take the previous master plan, see what was able to be achieved, learn the lessons from implementation or lack thereof, and then use that as a guideline as to first steps of where to go with this next master plan? Does that sound right? I mean, does that, even though that was done a while ago, does some of that still stick? You know what I'm saying? Like it's, but I'm sure some of that wasn't achieved, but you don't want to lose that. Like that would be hard, I think, to be like, and what do we keep? But adapt to now. You know what I'm saying? Like, what I hear you saying is you're not going to scrap the whole thing. And
No.
Yeah.
No, I think what I'll do, pretty early on is kind of go through it, probably with Tatiana and Stephanie and sort of ask about some of the bigger ideas and whether they worked or not and but I think a lot of it will be driven by the so-called lived experience of doing the work, right? So the master plan is one reference. It's a reference because it's there, but what really I think will carry weight is what folks have experienced while trying to do this work. That's right. So you compare that, it's written, then you try to adjust.
And so that question of who should we connect with during the process, I hope that you'll reach out to folks who've done work, like submitted projects that were picked, not picked, and what was that process like working with trying to get public art out into public? Also, I would think like people in the, like, we're pretty invested because we're sitting here right now, but there's people who aren't invested that may enjoy it, may not enjoy it, or may just keep walking on by, I would even think like youth, like I would be really interested to hear what the youth have to say about it. Because maybe they'll stick around and be seeing it for a lot longer than us. I wonder too, like there's so many master plans running through Athens. And what I kind of see is they don't talk to each other. So yeah, you and I are talking later this week, but I would think that makes it cool to see what's up with the future land use plan. How does that? Because so much of the time that we talk, it's about what spot do we put this at? That would be cool to see what things are popping up in the future to be like, darn that.
We met with the planners today at my office and looked at like their, kind of where they're looking at countywide and sort of seeing some areas and corridors and things like that. So that was, it was very broad, but it's helpful to just sort of get more perspective conversation. So yeah.
Other groups I think would be helpful to talk to are just like other civic organizations that aren't necessarily associated with government or specific areas, but like on the east side, there's an East Athens Business Coalition, and they're voting on the name this week, so that may change. But, it's just a group of citizens, business owners that are really invested in seeing the east side come to life, and they talk a lot about public art. So if we can identify other streets like that, I think that'd be a great place to not only get good feedback, but also maybe garner more support for people that do want to be on site to feel.
Yeah, Paul Allen, the owner of one of the owners of Future Greens, is big on all that.
And Chris Joyner. But there are other groups like that. That's just one example. You know, that are just kind of invested in specific geographic areas.
But even things like public art and some like in East Athens.
Yeah.
Like there's some places. The other thing that popped in my head is, does the mayor commission know that this is happening? So they can feel like they're part of it and you just don't draw a plan on it.
Y'all voted to recommend that we proceed with this, so that's updated and they
Yeah, I mean, I've communicated up to the manager, one of our, this and the Triangle Artworks are projects that we are undertaking this fall. Both of them kick off this month.
Yeah.
So,
The last thing that pops in my head is that when I think of public art, you had mentioned, Todd, something about maybe it doesn't need to be with leisure services, but I think the two are so tied to each other. Like when I think of one, I think of the other, just because if you look on leisure services website, so many of the things that they offer are artistic. So I know you sitting at the table, really glue that all back in, but just think they're hang out with each other.
Yeah, I'd love to dive into that question, sort of the vision a little bit, and also some of the stuff you were saying on community and how that all fits together. I'm curious, I guess the question for me is, what role does public art play in sort of helping create a built environment that facilitates a thriving artistic ecosystem? And I just a thought exercise might be helpful not to take the answer necessarily as obvious, because you have some very ugly cities with some amazing arts. Some beautiful cities with terrible for declining arts. So, you don't have to pick on Austin, but it's the city I used to live in, so it's kind of easy. Austin has what seems to be a very vibrant public arts scene. They're always putting up murals and stuff like that, and yet it's kind of declining as a vital source of the arts. So the murals that come up, the public art that comes up, almost serve as a museum to what Austin once was. And I'd imagine we want to avoid that. And because we sort of find ourselves, I think, at a sort of inflection point of, Athens is this amazingly rich artistic cultural heritage. Like every city, it's changing in various ways, it's becoming more expensive, et cetera. How do we maintain its artistic vibrance, through those transformations? And so I guess my question would be, how do we use public art in that way to make sure it serves that purpose for it to be a living ecosystem?
Wow. I'm still like thinking about what you're saying about Austin.
That's fine.
No, I mean, I did a project that I finished about a year ago, and I'm trying to think about whether what you said, like I'm trying to filter that through my experience. And what you're saying or suggesting maybe about Athens is something I still need to learn about. But I would say that public art to maintain its relevance, and this is like a general philosophical answer, not an Athens answer. It needs to tap into what people care about, so that when people see it, they somehow, and I can't explain how this happens all the time, but they see their city, they see themselves in it because it's about something they connect with. And it also has to connect with what artists do or what they care about in the city. I'm working, thinking about a place I'm working now, Reno, which is where it's the gateway to Burning Man. So a lot of our conversations are about how has the 20 years of Burning Man changed the art scene in the city? How has it defined the art scene? What happens in the city now because of that? And it's created a lot of networks of like maker type people who like to make things, who really weren't in Reno before that, and who love to see their work in the city, even though they don't create it there for the city first. And when people see it in the city, somehow it does kind of reflect. And it's not just the aesthetics; it's kind of it's because, well, it's not that it's just the aesthetics, it's that it's sort of made in a certain way by people in the community. And usually there's something you can find in communities that, where the art, speaks to people that way. If you go to like Northwest Washington, it's all glass because there's so many glass artists who came out of Dale Chihuly's shop, and that just makes people's spirits sing when they see it. In my community, it's murals, because for 40 years that's been what the city has gotten good at, right? And we love to have a conversation and find ways for our artists to kind of grow within that system, but to have a conversation with muralists from all over. So it has to be relevant in those ways. So it has to be part of what the life of the city and the life of artists is about. I think that, a lot of what people are thinking about now in public art is not just about how this is represented visually, but also how it plays out in other kinds of art forms, socially engaged projects, temporary projects, which may not be, painting or sculpture, but which may be other media like performance or dance or music that are all about an artist capturing a moment, that are about different ways of speaking to something that a city is thinking about, process-based projects. So, that's a way that public art remains very relevant because it's starting with what's on people's minds, what's on artists' minds, and trying to space. I couldn't say like what that might be in Athens right now. That's something we can think about. Now, I'm lucky in Philadelphia. I work in a city where resources come from all over. Here, a lot of the resources are defined by the infrastructure projects that are funded. And so how you pivot and try to connect with other kinds of energy centers is going to be kind of tricky. We can think about that.
Yeah, and when you mentioned process oriented type installations or engagements, are there things you can do, kinds of projects that allow these sort of continued engagements from different parts of the community, different kinds of artists? So it's not just a piece of art that's static, but this rather represents a site of continued artistic engagement with community, a place where people can continue to come, continue to make creative things. Is there anything, is that what you're speaking to, sort of process type stuff, or does that make any
a process type. So the answer to your question directly is yes. Those things tend to require a lot of resources. But a process type approach can be related to one project, and it can still have an outcome. Like that's a physical, like, if there's someone in Philly who collects, guns that are returned to the police and melts them down and builds sculpture. And so it goes through a whole sort of kind of ceremonial kind of process of doing this with people in communities. And so it becomes almost like I don't mean this word in a celebratory way, it's like a pageant or some sort of, transformational experience to watch these things of violence being turned into something positive. So that's a process-based project. It happens as a result of sculpture. And there are people in different places that do that too. So that's an example of a project that could be a space. But the whole other end of the spectrum, there are I'll just give you an example because it's on my mind. I was just talking about Reno. One of the things we're talking about is they have a river that goes through the middle of the city. Like the city's it's in a desert mostly, but there's this river, and it's the wildest thing. The river goes from one lake to another. That's it. Like I'm from the east. I'm used to rivers going to oceans. That's where you go. This goes from one lake to another and that's it. Anyway, it goes to the city. It's crazy. It's a basin is what it's called. Anyway, half of the river has really been, the back's been turned on it. Half of it sort of goes to the expensive neighborhoods, and half connects to the wilderness. So, so there's this area that's where the sewer plant is, things like the mail facility and on all that. And so we're talking about like, how do you do a multi-year, you just can't put a sculpture out there, right? But like, how do you do a set of actions over the course of several years that get people reconnected to this thing? Do you do performances? Do you do a dance? Do you do some kind of ceremonial thing? Do you, create temporary places for people to go just for short periods of time so that they can find their way to the river again? So there's many, many ways you can organize series of projects, like as a campaign, and you can involve artists of all types. I mean, that's, but it takes quite a bit of resources to do.
We have a little bit of that here in our Greenway projects, right? Because we have our Greenway, and we've also taken like opportunities with Dudley Park where we renovated that park. It's on the Firefly Trail and the Greenway, and it has a large scale sculpture and mosaic. And that's where we host the Lantern Parade, which is a large scale, participatory art experience. So like, that's like a placemaking, placemaking kind of. And so we can build on that, and this update can help us think of other ways we can do that, or ways we can expand that, or things we haven't occurred to us yet.
Mm-hmm. So one more thing about that. So I'm like trying to make this up as we go along, but if you're interested in what I just said, the project I look at a lot that really fascinates me is the LA River Public Art Project, which is now a nonprofit, and it's just a series of years of projects that are just sort of saying like, why is our river in a concrete chute? Why can't we do better than that? It's about reinventing it. Another one, I studied these when I was working in Austin, is Fresh Kills Park in New York City, which is the old landfill that the city probably 20 years ago decided to turn into a park. But it was going to take decades before it could be used as a park. Nevertheless, they started a prototype public art program to monitor and kind of help interpret the regeneration of the landscape from a brownfield to the usable park. So you can find the documentation of all these projects that were done if you look up Fresh Kills Park. So there's a lot of things you can find. But again, they take time and they take resources. In terms of places, another strategy is more time limited, but the LA County is a great place to look for. It's a lot of great ideas are coming out of LA County. They have like a triennial or a biennial that the Department of Arts and Culture runs. And the last one they did, I think, was on the topic of food, some aspect of food justice or food access, and they gave out funding for nonprofits and for artists to do projects in parks around themes of food all over LA County. I guess not the city, but the county. And then for like 2 months, they had dozens of events like throughout the city. And so that's sort of a thematic, and it was very diverse in terms of the groups and the art forms and the types of events. So that's another approach that's more compressed in time, but widespread geographically throughout a huge area. Those are the kinds of things I find really exciting right now. They take really, again, a lot of resources. They take and they kind of take a really good working relationship between the arts part of government and the other parts of government to make them happen. Sorry, just getting off on examples there.
They probably have more than one staff.
What's that?
They have more than one.
Yeah, it says,
Yeah. Perhaps.
yeah. You can look also at the Bloomberg Public Art Challenge, which is every 4 years, the Bloomberg Foundation accepts proposals for transformative temporary public art projects. They just went through a cycle last year, so but a lot of good ideas come out of that. You can look through their archives and see what they put there. That's where you'll find again, like some of the more interesting ideas right now. And those challenge, the Bloomberg Public Art Challenge is always about something that is a priority for the city government. That's like the barrier to entry is you have to get the mayor to write a letter and show up for interviews and things like that. Because the foundation wants to see that the mayor is behind the project.
And they're temporary. They have to be temporary.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, it's like,
Why
2 years.
can't something be permanent?
that's a really great question, especially when you're spending, potentially millions of dollars. on that. That's,
Because I think they want to avoid the resources. I think they feel like there's a trade-off between the amount of resources you need to invest in something that's going to be permanent versus something where you don't have to worry about the artwork itself being durable. Then you have more funding available to do more engagement or involve people, and you can also involve different kinds of artists if it's not a permanent project.
Also, the short term, like ephemeral nature of work like that can sometimes encourage people to like, well, you better come and see it because it's gonna be gone. And it can be a catalyst for a community conversation about, if you build something like temporarily in this site, it might drive the community to be like, well, what would we really, if we really had, it's like, what could we build in this place and serve this kind of purpose? So it can sometimes work that way.
Yeah, exactly.
so Todd, what I will do is I'll send your PowerPoint out to everyone tomorrow. And I'll copy paste those questions into the body of the email. So if anyone wants to respond to any of those questions, I'll make sure y'all have Todd's contact info if you want to speak directly to him, or you're welcome to pass anything along to me.
You know what? If you send that out, that'd be great. But I can send out a Google sheet or Google form.
Sure.
If that doesn't
Yeah.
bother anyone using Google. Because then we can compile them more easily.
Yeah, sounds great.
One less thing to do.
Yeah.
One less thing to do.
Yeah, I know that. I know that.
Could be.
Absolutely. Yeah, we're on to or Francis.
So one of the questions I'll put on there, like SWATs projects aside, what issues do you think the community would be interested in seeing explored in public art? Let to add more work to your plate.
The idea is like the work we're doing, is it the work that people want?
Yeah.
Like, that's kind of what this commission too is like, are we going in the direction people wants to go? This is where we building and are we reflecting the community that people see themselves in?
I think that is another reason why I really like the engagement that we were talking about, that you were specifically talking about when the artists who did get their proposals picked and those who didn't, and in all the interviews and everything is because you need that feedback loop to be closed often and as short as possible, right? And I think that's the only way to get those types of answers,
Yeah.
is to ask yourself, and ask yourself often.
You'll have plenty more chance to weigh in.
Okay. Is that it for?
Yeah, and Francis isn't here, but I did want to mention, that Pride Fest is coming up. And I know she was looking for, Jessica, are you gonna be tabling that? Jessica needs a buddy.
I can table myself.
There you go.
I can do that.
like a bit out like before. So she's hoping to come and help set up and maybe come back later in the afternoon, but you're welcome to just do whatever works best for you. I'll be maybe guys to read them up.
Yeah.
I think you know.
And I'll send out a reminder about that, with the times and everything.
Probably we can coordinate that. So.
And I know that Frances has some other outreach opportunities that she wants to share, too. So those will send those out as soon as we know some of those opportunities and we'll go from there.
Tatiana, last time when Jen and I tabled, I know that like the lights needed to be charged, but I don't think lights are necessary from an event that's from 1 to 6. But the, bubble machine, which is a hit,
Yeah.
it was like,
Not working?
no, it works. It needs more batteries and more bubbles.
Okay.
And I don't, just. But,
Batteries and bubbles.
batteries and bubbles.
It's
But
my
other than that.
working title of my memoirs.
Working title of your memoirs.
Not right Saturday.
Sounds like a good.
So there's a little handheld bubbles too.
Yeah, we have a bunch of those still, I think, in some of those totes. But I'll make sure I'll compile all that stuff for you, Jessica. It lives in this building, it lives up in my office, so I'm hoping, and I'll help you load it in and hopefully,
I can help
yeah.
set it up as well. So.
Yeah, I definitely recommend 2 people for these things, especially if you use the pop-up canopy and the table and all that stuff, because it's just a lot of stuff to schlep. But we have a wagon, one of those kind of collapsible wagons that are great for schlepping stuff.
Were there chairs last time?
2 chairs.
2 chairs.
Like
A lot of product provided is just space, so there's table, chairs, and then things to give away, but the intention is to see if folks will sign up so Tatiana can reach out to them when there's time to look at propositions of art. Selection panels, that's it. Yeah, that's the intention, it's just to bring awareness to what we're doing, but then, like, oh, do you wanna be on the selection panel? And we're like, yes.
They say it just like that, too.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Does anybody have anything else? We've done outreach and folks be looking for that email to get your spot this weekend. I think it's Saturday, right?
Yeah.
Anything else coming up for folks? There's a miscellaneous. Thing coming up.
We had Elaine Stevenson who's currently painting on her mural underneath. Her artist talk will be here at the Lennon House Center next Thursday. And also we're going to invite all the Triangle Artworks applicants who have been accepted into that online program to join us that night. So they can, because it's an online course. So we thought it would be fun to for their kickoff to sort of get to meet each other here and have a little hangout for them, as well as be here for Elaine Stevenson's talk. Yeah. So I would love it if you guys would come and bring friends to Elaine's talk. I think she's really interesting artist from Atlanta. And yeah, just meet the cohort who are going through our first inaugural program, Triangle Artworks.
This is a great time to bring up any sort of artsy things that going on in town, so that we can all know about it. Give an update on the artist creative directory, artist creatives directory. We've gone with the first stage of Captivate, discovery something. And then, our meeting, so Create Athens is meeting next Tuesday morning. Captivate is supposed to come to us with some sort of, and this is policy situation. I would put that to the group. We're talking about changing the name of the Athens Creative Directory to something else. So if any name pops in your head, I don't remember, it was like, the whole, you were there, it's like, yeah,
Like, chat, interesting, but
And,
don't mull on that.
yeah, we're here for it to see what the state group says as well. And that, the 50's on the roll, and, hopefully she'll get pushed out in February. So they're gonna bring what they've put together to the entire group for it, that next week at the library. Yeah, so, or to let you know what the role of that See, I have any creative things going on in the community you want to let folks know about?
Oh, next Wednesday night, the Linden House Art Center Foundation will host its annual print sale. This is a fundraiser for the immigrants.
I love going.
And the print sale, the artist this year is Michelle Ross, who is a really well-known illustrator and ceramicist. It'll be her prints, and I think it starts at 6 p.m. It's held offsite. It's gonna be at the Hidden Gym. So you're.
Oh, no.
I think they'll have like some kind of, I don't know how I'm not sure actually how they're doing who gets to buy there's usually some drinks if you didn't stay around. So sometimes the prints sell out, so there's a little bit of like a burden anxiety that kind of makes it fun, because the prints, it's not an auction situation. It's not a silent auction, it's like you get a ticket and then you get that sort of queue in line to purchase. And so, I think there's also prints, I'm not sure, I can't remember what that amount is, but they're usually really popular. Yeah.
It's a limited edition,
That's-
so thank you.
And that's next Wednesday?
It is.
That's dangerous.
Listen, you should see if you're going to all the previous years are framed into the hallway, that corridor that leads back to this door. That is all of the ones over the years that have been created for this. Linden House Arts Foundation, or the foundation uses those funds to like help fund like we have teen clubs here on Tuesday, Thursday night, and just other programs that the foundation supports here at the Arts Center. That's next Wednesday. So next Wednesday at Hidden Gym, and next Thursday here for the artist talk and trying to cohort with that.
You got anything else? Good to the group? I move to adjourn this meeting at 7:46. We are good for that? All right. Thanks, everybody. Coming.
You asked for an option too, which you did you?
Right.
I'm from Morgan, this kind of very, actually.